I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's 11 o'clock. Thank you all for coming. We have another, for those of you that were here on Tuesday for our symposium, we had two dynamic speakers, and we have another dynamic speaker today. I'd like to introduce Sean Raines. Sean has been where you all were. We were just talking about it. I won't tell you how long ago, but he is also a Concord alum in the marketing area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Welcome.
Thank you very much. All right, so can everybody hear me okay? Kind of a big room. Okay, good. You're a senior, getting close to graduation. Not quite sure what you're going to do. You've picked your major. Maybe you've bounced around a little bit, but now you're locked in. You're graduating. What's the real world going to be like? Is it going to be scary? Are you ready? So what are you going to do? Well, if you're like me, you talk to your professor, Dr. Deck, and he tells you you should probably do an internship. And that's what I did. Did an internship. And I drove every day from after class from here to Blacksburg, Virginia, and I worked in the marketing department for Tetra, which is one of the brands right here. I'm going to lower the light so you guys can see this a little bit better. No going to sleep, hopefully. So yeah, started working for this brand right here. And as time went on, my career took a lot of different paths, ended up in sales, ended up back in marketing as an associate product manager, and worked my way up through the ranks, and now I'm in a director of marketing, and now I'm here today. And why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because it kind of sets the stage on why culture is important. And not just culture as we understand it in a broad definition, but the culture that you add to, the culture that you're a part of, the culture that you can change. And we're going to go through this exercise. We're actually going to do a little bit of an exercise. It's nothing major. It's not a test or anything. So that when you walk away today, hopefully you can take some of these learnings, apply them to not only your school life, your academic life, but you can apply them to your professional life as you grow. And hopefully you can actually apply this to your personal life. I've used some of these techniques to change some situations that I've been in for the positive. And so that's my hope today, is that you walk away from a little bit of that. A key point of that, and the reason I told you the story I told you, is as we go through these exercises, I want you to kind of visualize where you want to be and who you want to be and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish and what you want to leave this world with. That's very important, and that'll keep you focused on where you want to be and keep you focused on the right things. So let's start with the agenda. What are we going to do today? What are you going to learn? Hopefully we're going to define culture and define it in terms of this conversation, in terms of your life. Narrow the focus a little bit on that. We're going to talk about the different types of cultures. Culture, a lot of times we think is a point in time, but cultures change, and they change in a continuum, and they go back and forth. So these culture types that we're going to walk through, whether it's your personal life, your academic life, or your professional life, you will see these evolve over time. And the reason that they evolve over time is because inputs change, you change, your paradigm changes. And it's key that you stay focused on that, and you understand that it's just like time in science. It's a cycle. So we're also going to look at where you're at, and we're going to do that in a minute. And we're going to think about, do you nurture where you're at today, or do you redirect where you're at today? And just like the story I told you briefly about me, if I hadn't redirected and I hadn't taken the advice of Dr. Deck, probably wouldn't be. Woohoo! Yeah, I actually would not be where I'm at today. So it's key that we look at that and talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to go through 4 steps on how to change a negative culture, and hopefully you'll understand culture, where you're at, and understand if you are in a situation where it's a little negative, how can you change that? How can you get out of that? And how can you be Franklin Covey calls a transition person. All right, and culture is people, and we're people. We're having a conversation today, so if you guys have any questions, I think there's some time at the end of the presentation, but if you really feel strongly about something or you want a little more information or you think I'm being clear, raise your hand, speak up, and we can have I want to make sure this conversation is going well. So what is culture? As defined by Webster, it's a way of thinking, behaving, or working that exists in a place or organization such as a business. The reason I highlighted those three words and in different colors is because those three words, while they're related, really are a little different. The way you think drives how you behave, and the way you behave is how you work. Interestingly enough, though, the way you work does affect the way you think. So something in that cycle has to change for there to be for change to happen. So as you receive input, you act on that input, and then there's output, and that output oftentimes feeds your input. So while it says such as a business, which is funny because that's my world. I've been living it now for, we did the math, it was 16 years. Graduated in '99, so I'm old. But my life was really business. But it wasn't, believe it or not, it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting here in a room with you guys. In fact, I have an ex-college friend here, and I remember a lot of the coursework was group work. So you guys, group work is culture. Whether it's a group of 2 or a group of 4 or a group of 20, it's culture. And everybody in that is going to affect that culture. So you can apply this today. I guarantee you got group work. All right? I guarantee it. And that's good because that is life. Life is group work. You got to work with people. Whether you like them or you don't, you got to work with them. And you got to work towards a common goal. And just another quick commercial about marketing. How many people here are marketing majors or plan on going into marketing? Anybody? Nobody? You hope to? All right. In marketing, a lot of times people have a hard time in the business world understanding what we do, especially if they hadn't been trained in marketing. They think we do sales typically. But a lot of times we are culture leaders in the organization. But that doesn't mean that other people can't be agents of change. And as you're working in group work here at Concord, it's important to remember these things, and it should make your end product better. And we'll get into that. So here's a couple of visual examples of teamwork, right? You know, everybody's got their hands in, they're all happy. Hopefully they've washed because they're all kind of touching. That doesn't happen very often, by the way. This stock photography, I don't know where they get it, but I can't remember a meeting starting or ending this way ever in my career, except for maybe some team building events. Here's another famous picture. I would love to work in this place. These places exist, not at Spectrum Brands, but these places exist. This is kind of an open area, sharing of ideas. You've got people playing a random chess game. Again, doesn't really happen that often. But you know, just by looking at these two pictures, you kind of get an idea of the culture of these places, right? You know, it's teamwork. Everybody's getting along and sharing ideas. Unfortunately, sometimes you find yourself in this situation, and that's a culture too. Yeah, and you know what? It's not just her that's suffering. I mean, they're suffering too. I mean, a nap would be great right now, I'm sure, but you know, they're at work. You know how much time you spend at work? You know how much of your life is work? It's a lot of your life. Before you know, you wake up one day and you've been out of school for 16 years and you've been asleep at your desk. And you have control over that. You absolutely have control over that. And You need to practice these things now so that when you get out in the real world, you can be ready for the game. But yeah, this is bad. I've never seen this either. Well, I have, but so these are just some visual aids for pictures. Why am I giving you visual aids? I'm kind of a simple guy. I like to visualize things. So what I want you to do right now, and that's why everybody's got paper, hopefully, and pens. If you don't, speak up and we'll get you some. I just want you to take a few minutes, and I want you, again, my goal, my personal goal is that you walk out of here with something you can use. So I want you to take a few minutes. I want you to think about the situation you're in right now. This could be a personal situation. This could be a work situation if some of you are in a professional situation right now. This could be like I said, a school situation. Maybe you've got some group work that's going on right now. And I want you to think about what those situations are like, or that situation is like. If there's more than one, feel free to write it down. And write down some of the feelings you have, how you feel about the people that are in the situation with you. Maybe if you don't like to write, you can draw. That's okay. Drawing's okay. I'm not going to ask you to pass these in. I'm not going to take them unless you really want me to. This is for you, so just take a few minutes and do that. I would hum or something, but I'm tone deaf. So, oh yeah, I'm a horrible singer. There's a whole bunch of people in China that know that, but. And for those of you that ever have to do presentations, this is called a stalling technique. I'm just kidding. About another minute. It's all right. If you're into poetry, it could be a poem. Just a few more seconds here. Looks like people are finishing up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. If you need to write more. It's not going to bother me. Again, this is something I want you guys to use. Hey, how you doing? So now these three are going to present for us. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So the first culture type, and this is a continuum, and hopefully you guys this will become self-evident, but I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm going to give you the end up front. We're going to go through, this is a continuum. 1 is bad, 5 is good, okay? So if you're like, yeah, heck yeah, culture 1, combative, let's do this. Hopefully you'll learn it's not good, but this isn't good, okay? A common phrase in a combative culture is, I'm going to win and you are going to lose. Sounds pretty crappy, right? But you know what? That's a lot of cultures. That's a lot of work cultures. That can be coursework. You guys may be in a group right now where that's the case. You know, there's only so many A's, right? That's not right. There's plenty of A's. There's plenty of room. There's plenty to go around. But I like to call this the Mad Men culture, the Wall Street culture. Okay? When you think about it, how many people have seen Mad Men? I might be showing my age here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're not aware of Mad Men, it is a very combative culture. Advertising by nature is a combative thing. It's a weird mixture of creativity and sales. When you work for an ad agency, within the ad agency, you're trying to be top dog because you want to get all the billable hours. You want to be the creative. You want to be the Don Draper, minus the cigarette. You want to be. You don't want to be somebody that gets left behind. And if you're the agency itself, you're a principal of the agency, you want your agency to be on top. And the only way to be on top is to win clients. And the only way you're going to win clients is if you beat somebody else. And so you have to breed this idea that there's only so much and you're going to get it, which means somebody else isn't. And it's a common thing, especially in our society in the United States. We kind of do this just in general. So it's really easy to fall into this one. It sounds really harsh, but it does happen. Wolf of Wall Street. Anybody seen that movie? Okay, yeah, maybe that's a better. Yeah, yeah. Believe it or not, that stuff happened. And one of the things that Jordan was very famous for was what he called pump and dump. Okay, and pump and dump is really very, actually I think it is illegal now, but they were, the FTC was really trying to get all these laws in place, but he just kept being ahead of them. But if you guys remember, what he would do is he would take these really low performing stocks, he would buy them up, he would sell them, he would sell the stock, inflate the price, and then he would dump. He would pump it up and then he would dump it. How is that combative? It's combative because he got the money and that somebody else, they lost their money. People lost money because of what he did. And so he had this idea, and it happens a lot. It can happen a lot in business. It can happen a lot in schoolwork. It can happen in your personal life. You may have a personal situation where you feel like, I've got to be better than them. I've got to get more from them than they're going to give me. So it's something to reflect on. Maybe your situation's like that, but maybe it's not. Hopefully it's not. But that's your culture type 1 is combative. So as we move up the continuum, the second type of culture that we find ourselves in is called cold. So it's not really I'm going to win and you're going to lose. It's I'm going to win. I really don't care if you win or lose. It's kind of an indifference, lack of empathy. I'm going to be number one. As long as you don't get in my way, I'll be number one. You can be number two. But if you win, that's great, but I've got to win for sure. And I struggled really hard with this one because it's really easy to confuse this one with combative, and you'll see where there's some transition. Sometimes you can be in two culture types, and they'll overlap a little bit. And as you go up and down the continuum, sometimes within a day you'll go between cultures. So on this one, I was struggling. I was trying to do something. I don't want to be one of those folks that just sits there and tells you about it myself. I want you to have something to use. So one of the things I like to do is I like to run. This is kind of a recent hobby of mine. I've fallen in love with it. And when you think about running, you think about it's a competitive thing. And runners love to say that they're running the race against themselves. And that's very true. So I just did a half marathon about 2 weeks ago down in Blacksburg. And I was reflecting on this presentation and thinking about how I was going to get this point across, and this came to mind. So I run every Wednesday night, did it last night with a group of people, a great group of people. We're really good friends. You know, after you've ran a few miles and endorphins start kicking in and suddenly you love everybody, people you probably wouldn't talk to in your normal life. But anyway, these folks and I, we've gotten really close, and I was thinking about that half. And some of those folks ran in the half with me. And I literally during the half did not care if they could finish. I didn't care if they had a good time. I didn't care if, and by good time I meant like finishing time, not like a party as they're running. I really didn't care as much as I cared about how my time was going to be, because I had this goal in mind. I'm gonna finish this in an hour and 35 minutes, and I didn't. By the way, I failed miserably. But that was what I wanted to do. The end of the race, though, I did care about their time, and I did care. I wanted to know how they did and stuff. But during that moment, I was very cold. During that moment, during that race, well, not moment, I wish it was a moment, it was a lot longer moment, but during that race, I was very cold. I was very self-driven. I wanted to finish. I wanted to win. I didn't care if they went. If they had tripped, I probably wouldn't have helped them. I hate to say that, but that's where I was at that point in my life. And it takes that kind of thinking. So it takes that kind of honesty. And I didn't like that about myself. Actually, I was really disappointed in myself, but that's just how it was. And so that's why I'm using running as an example. And I will assure you none of those are my legs. Mine are far hairier and not as toned. All right, so what's the third type? This type happens a lot. This is where people get stuck. This is called compliant. All right, I heard that goofy guy from Spectrum Brands talking about culture, and I can't be a complete jerk. I can't be a halfway jerk. I gotta be an okay guy, right, or okay gal. I gotta make this happen. I gotta do this. So I understand you can't lose, so I'll just go with the flow, right? In fact, this is almost as dangerous as cold, because this is where apathy lives. This is where, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to play the game. This is where it doesn't matter if I'm right. It doesn't matter if you're right. I don't care who's right. I just don't want to fight anymore. I don't know how to do this. This is culture type 3. This is right in the middle of the continuum. This is transition. This is struggle. This is where burnout lives. This is where burnout can happen. And this might be where you find yourself. And this is where you can churn and churn and churn and churn and churn. Because as you're trying to change the culture, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we get into the 4 steps, but as you're trying to change culture, it's going to be imperative. I mean, so important that you work with others. This isn't something you keep to yourself. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm talking to you folks. This is something where you go and find a colleague, you find a classmate. In your personal life, if it's somebody that you have a relationship with or a group of friends, you talk to them about this. Otherwise, if you do this by yourself, this is where you're going to stay, because you can find yourself like, you know what, I just give up. I just want to go with the flow. I'm tired of this uncomfortableness. I'm just going to do whatever they want me to do. And you're actually going to force them possibly into being cold and combative. So it's important that you recognize this phase or this type, but I don't want you sticking around in it. Like I said, in a work environment, and I would imagine in an academic environment, this is, like I said, where burnout lives. This is where you can stop caring about your own grades. You can stop caring about the project you're working on. Stop caring about the person that you have a relationship with. It's where you just kind of give up. It's not a great place to be. You fall asleep at your desk. I mean, nobody wants to do that. You don't want to spend your life that way. So this one you'll probably find yourself in, but try really hard to get out of it and change the way you see the situation. And because this is the transition type, as you're moving from cold, out of combative into cold and going on to the more advantageous culture types, you're starting to realize that the world doesn't center around you or your needs. It doesn't. The world that you're in doesn't center around that. So you have a choice to make. That doesn't mean you give up on your dreams and your hopes and what you want out of the project or school or relationship. What it means is you really start thinking about, where's the win-win? Franklin Covey calls it the third alternative. It's the 1 + 1 = 3. The sum of the parts are greater than the parts themselves. So I think that's how it goes. Yeah. So that's where you kind of bump yourself out of that. So I'm not saying just roll over. Don't be the doormat. Nobody. That's not good for the doormat or the people that you're working with. All right. Cooperative. It's a good word, right? Sounds a lot better than cold. Heck of a lot better than combative. It's a lot better than compliant in my book. Culture type 4. We will both win by compromising. Compromise. Compromise. Here's some compromise, right? It's a good picture of compromise. Everybody raising their hand. You know, you've got people getting what they want. You got some people not sure about what they want or sure about the idea, but they're going to go with it anyway, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm going to take some of your idea. I'm going to take some of your idea, and we're going to work on this, and we're going to. You're not going to get everything you want. I'm not going to get everything I want, but we're going to get something, right? Somebody's going to win here. Some part of your idea is going to make it in. This is a really difficult one. I didn't give you an example on compliant because I think I beat that horse to death. But on this one, I was thinking about this one before as I was doing this presentation, and I came up with a perfect one. And hopefully you may be able to relate to this. If not, you will shortly. Who all has bought a car recently or in their past life? Okay. That's a compromise. For you and for the car dealership, right? I think we just talked about this. So you go in, right? Sit down. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. Car Dealer. How are you? Fine, how are you? I want to buy this car. That's great. How much do you want to pay for this car? I want to pay this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't pay that. You have to pay this, right? If you want to pay that, I'm taking away this. Wait, I want that, but I only want this much of that. I'll give you this much for this and the car, right? And then it goes on and on and on. How did you feel when you walked out of that situation? Depending on the deal that you got, even if you got a really good deal, probably down deep, a little small part of you felt really crappy. You probably felt like, as you're driving off, I think we called it cognitive dissonance, right? As a marketer, you want to avoid that. You know, that feeling, you're driving your car, you're like, I got my new car. Did I pay too much? Did I really need the floor mats? I mean, you know, I see these commercials for floor mats and they're pretty cheap and they're laser cut. Maybe I could have got those. Did I need the extended warranty? I didn't get the extended warranty because it was too much, right? That's a bad feeling. That's what compromise can feel like. It sounds really good. It sounds great. It sounds way better than combative. It sounds way better than cold. Hey, I'm getting something, so I'm not a doormat. But compromise can be really, really dangerous. It can work, but it can be really, really dangerous. I'll give you a really good example on compromise in the business world, something you're probably near and dear to your heart than buying a car. And again, I've got another example of how this particular individual turned cooperation into the fifth type. And you guys didn't even know you were doing this. Do you know what a CAPTCHA is? CAPTCHA. Okay, that's those funny little characters you have to type into a website so that they know you're not a robot. So like when you sign up for something or when you're buying tickets on StubHub, it's like the curly letter and you can't figure out what's what. So it was great, right? I mean, it saved a lot of companies a lot of money. And they did it just for that. They did it so that you couldn't have robots and all this other stuff. So it was security, and the guy that came up with it was really brilliant. But he got tired of being called the CAPTCHA guy because it was like a dirty word. So he came up with this brilliant idea that he realized that there's all these books out there, tons and tons of books, old books, that even when you scan them in, they don't have software sophisticated enough to read those words and digitize these books. And digitizing books was really important to him. So he started thinking, how can I merge something that people hate doing with something that needs to be done? So something that people hate to do but have to do and help me get something done. So what he did was he said, CAPTCHA's not going away. I've created CAPTCHA. I'm going to make CAPTCHA work to digitize books that can't be digitized. So has anybody pay attention if you haven't. When you go to sign in for CAPTCHAs now, sometimes you'll have the squiggly letters and then you'll have a word that looks like it's been scanned from a book. and you have to type in both. And what they've done is, at CAPTCHA, is they've decided, okay, I'm going to take this annoyance, and I'm going to mine the data, and for every right answer, that word gets digitized. So while you're proving you're not a robot, you're helping digitize books that otherwise would be lost forever. So that's a compromise, right? I got that from a TED Talk. If you guys aren't familiar with TED Talks, I'm going to be here for about 15 minutes after this thing. I'll be happy to talk to you guys. It's a great story, this CAPTCHA story. So that's compromise. You didn't know you were doing it, but you're helping. You still don't feel great about CAPTCHA, right? You're still annoyed that you have to do it, but it's still good. So it's not always a negative thing. You can stay in culture type 4. Culture type 4, a lot of companies stay in that culture for a very long time, and they confuse it for the 5th type, which we're going to get into in a minute. You may find yourself in this situation more often than not, especially in coursework. I remember when I was with you, when I was in your chair, literally, well, actually not, because this didn't exist when I was here. That's how long ago it was. But I remember doing coursework, and there were a lot of times that we made compromises just to get the project done. So it takes a lot of discipline to stay out of this, but you can function here. It's just sometimes you feel you have more chance of backsliding into some of the other elements of culture or negative culture the longer you stay in this area. So, and just real quick, I want you guys to think about, how do you think these two feel? And I bet you, as bad as you think these two might feel, these people feel just as bad. That's sometimes the problems with consensus. All right, this is my favorite, and this is the one that I could probably talk another half hour about, but don't worry, I won't. It's collaborative. Let's work together so that the work is great. So, I'm going to put this up so you guys can look at this cool picture. But collaboration, where collaboration and compromise diverge and where they're different, is collaboration isn't take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, and then we'll make something at the end. Collaboration is, here's the end. How do we want to get there? It isn't what's the end going to look like. It isn't debating what the end's going to look like. It's this is the end. We know we have to be here. We know we have to turn in a paper. We know we have to get to Florida. We know we have to launch this product. How are we going to do it? And everybody gets the voice. Everybody gets their idea out. And instead of taking and tearing apart ideas, you build on each other's ideas. And everybody has a common goal. That's what it looks like in a collaborative environment, in a collaborative culture. It isn't, I'm going to get my way and you might get yours, or we're not really going to get either of our ways. It's we're going to get the way. I like to say to my teams that I work with, I don't care if I'm right, I don't care if you're right, I care that it's right. And that's the attitude that you have to have. And I'm lucky because I've been with this company for the whole 16 years since I've been away from Concord, that all started with that internship. And I've been lucky to have some really great colleagues. I've also been unlucky. I've had some pretty crappy ones too, but the fact of the matter is the environment, the culture, that collaborative culture is what got us through, and that's why we've grown to the heights that we've grown. This picture seems kind of goofy, but I was doing a lot of research before I came to you guys today, and I did a lot of research on collaboration. I'm pretty famous around the office for talking about Steve Jobs and Wozniak, and I really didn't want to do that, but I'm probably going to, so please excuse me for that. But this one I found very, very interesting, and it was, this is NASA and Lego. What the heck does NASA and Lego have to do with anything, right? I mean, together, like you really wouldn't think about it. I mean, yeah, Legos probably have really sparked a lot of love of engineering, and NASA's all about engineering. But at the end of the day, they're two separate business models. I mean, altogether, one's a toy and one's about, getting my butt to Mars. So, what the heck does NASA and Lego have to do with anything, right? I mean, yeah, Legos probably have really sparked a lot of love of engineering, and NASA's all about engineering. But at the end of the day, they're two separate business models. I mean, altogether, one's a toy and one's about, getting my butt to Mars. So But what did they do? They collaborated, and they collaborated on a common goal. And by collaboration, Lego didn't get to put their logo on the space shuttle, and Lego didn't agree to make space shuttle only bricks, or NASA only bricks. What they agreed on was, how can we help each other for a common goal, and that was truly to get kids interested in building, in engineering. And so they crossed funds. Lego gave funds to NASA, NASA gave funds to Lego, and they've built this whole education system now, and it's completely, you wouldn't know that they've done it. You have to actually research it, and I can give you guys the PDF. It's really great. This is actually the 30 best collaborations in history. It was a pretty interesting read. This was the one that I liked the most because it was a great example of doing the right thing, not just doing the thing that you think you need to do, and hopefully they come along with you. But Steve Jobs and the Woz, right? Steve Jobs was a jerk. I don't know if anybody's read the book about him. He was. But he got a lot of things done. And he did know one thing, and that was what he couldn't do. And so he knew that he had to get people that could do what he needed to get done and work with them. So, and Wozniak, even not until much later, after some time had passed, he even admitted that he wouldn't have been able to do what he needed to do without Steve Jobs. And that's really the key to collaboration, is it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what you don't know, and it matters finding those people that you can work with to make a better idea. In my personal life, school, I had a guy I used to do all my projects with. His name was Josh Rice. Josh was a great guy. We ended up being pretty good friends. But you couldn't find two different minds. I was more creative, kind of marketing bent. He was a finance guy. He knew numbers and he knew everything. But he had some strengths that I just didn't have, and I had some that he didn't have, and we were able to work together on some pretty great projects, right? I mean, probably the best you've ever received.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the key to collaboration, is building, not tearing down. Here's just a real quick idea, I'm running out of time, of the collaboration continuum. Combative, cold, compliant, cooperative, collaborative. Optimal results live in the tail end of 4 and 5. The reason the arrow goes back and forth is you can go back and forth. Your relationships can go back and forth, and that's okay. It's just, again, a loose definition of paradigm is how you see the world. If you don't change how you see the world, you cannot expect different results. So recognizing these levels, not staying in the lower levels very long, and pushing yourself to level 5 as much as you can, and the people around you to level 5 as much as you can, will make your life better. It will actually make this world better. And I stole this. This is actually something that Spectrum teaches, so it's really cool. And that's just some friendly Uncle Sean advice. When you guys are looking for jobs, when you're interviewing, it's a two-way street, okay? Because the culture you're in will define who you are. So it's very important that you stay on top of that. So, what's your culture like? You guys wrote some things down. Hopefully maybe you drew some pictures. Are things getting done? More importantly, are they getting done well? It's not just that you're getting your job done, it's how you get your job done. What's the story you would write? Guys, I told you a little bit about my story, right? I don't think I did a great job. I practiced it better in my office yesterday, but I feel like it's a pretty good story. I'm fairly happy with how it is right now. I'm glad I'm here today. It got me here today. But what would your story be right now? Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it an action film? If it's an action film, we need to talk, because that would be cool. Is it boring? I would like to hope that it's a little bit of everything, right? And I would hope that in everything you do, you're finding meaning and you're finding fulfillment, and that you're writing your story the way you want to write it. And I hope that you can use some of the stuff that we're going to go through right now to make your story the way you want it. So there's 4 steps to changing culture. One is identify. Identify what culture you're in and what state it's in at the current time. 2, plan. Plan what you're going to do and where you want to be. Just like we drew pictures and we wrote down where you're at, you need to do that, and then you need to go so far as to write where you want to be. So if you're in the middle of a drama right now and you're seeking action, write down, draw what that action is going to look like. Then act. No plan ever goes anywhere unless you do this. And then sustain. The beauty of all of this is it's cyclical, just like everything else in life. To sustain, you have to continue to identify where you're at. And then you got to, it's a cycle. Okay, if you're familiar with Franklin Covey, they talk about see, do, react. So, and it's a cycle. And understanding where you're at in that and being conscious of that is key. All right, so just real quick. The first thing you want to do is not only identify the opportunity for change, but you also want to identify the partners, okay? Culture is people. Okay, you cannot divorce people from culture. They go hand in hand. So you want to identify the opportunities, you want to identify the people that you're going to work with. This is going to have to be a team effort. Even if it's just 2 of you, you need to involve this person. You don't want to be manipulative. So you've got them identified, you know what you want to plan, right? But we just talked about collaboration. Collaboration isn't, we're going to do it my way, I don't care what you want. This is what needs to happen. Here's my picture. I want to be in an action film. How are we going to make it happen? So involve them, include the partners, talk to them. This isn't something you keep to yourself. Then you need to execute the plan. If you don't start, you're not going to finish. Okay? Just like when I was running that race, if I didn't actually get to the start line, I could never have disappointed myself. But just like in that race, every mile they had a marker that told me what mile I was at. And every mile was a little victory for me. I had 13.1 victories that day. Except for, well, at the point 1 was actually a letdown. But, you know, I felt pretty good every mile I saw. So it's important that you guys, as you build these relationships, you guys say, okay, this is what winning looks like. Here's a milestone. You know, we got the rough draft of the paper done. Let's go have some pizza or whatever. Whatever you do to celebrate. And that's very important. That'll help keep them involved. And then the fourth is, and the most important, is to check in. Okay? Check in and stay disciplined. This isn't going to be necessarily easy. It gets easier. But by staying disciplined to this and staying disciplined to the theory that they call it an abundance mentality in Franklin Covey. I use Franklin Covey a lot. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a great book and system, but it's very true. There's enough to go around. There's enough success, and you'll actually be more successful the more you bring people along with you. All right? So the first step is important, but every step you take is just as important. Because as you make these steps, and as you have these successes, and as you start to feel better, your vision of the world will change, which will then change how you act, which will then change the results you get. So that's all that I've got today. I'm right on time, 11:45. That never happens.
Can we get back to part 1 of that real quick? Just back up like 4 slides. Right there.
Yeah, no problem. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here for another 15 minutes. If you guys want to talk about anything, I'm a talker, so we can chat. And I hope you guys found this useful. I've got t-shirts too, so free t-shirts if you want them. I'm a branding dude, so they're branded. And I've got business cards if you want to email me. Yeah, exactly. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Sean. We appreciate it. He'll overstay, he'll be here, and I think he has a t-shirt.
Yep, yep.